Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Welcome, Mavericks. Welcome back. Welcome, new Mavericks from all over the globe. We have people watching from all over the world tonight. And we're fortunate that we're still on the air. Well, on the internet. Because we're under attack from all sides. From the left, from the right, from the top, from the bottom, from the inside, from the outside, from YouTube. We're going to talk about that. We're going to have to make some big changes here to this channel. And tonight, we will be jumping off YouTube shortly. If you want to keep on watching, you should go over to Rumble. Because our feature interview tonight is with Michelle Leduc, who is with the National Citizens Inquiry. As you know, YouTube doesn't like the National Citizens Inquiry very much. Because they talk about things they don't like people talking about. So we will talk about it, but we'll do it over on Rumble and some of the other social media platforms where we distribute our information. I'll discuss what's happening with this channel shortly. Other stories tonight. We're going to just dip in a little bit with Patrick Lancaster, talking about possible nuclear disaster, not because of bombs, but because of a nuclear power plant that is in the direct line of fire in a war zone, as that war in Ukraine rages on. Possible strike by federal workers in Canada, and the CBC is going to suspend or pause its use of Twitter after being labeled a government-funded operation by Twitter. Censorship, labeling, free speech, all of these things, hard to hold on to. Difficult to keep these freedoms that we've taken for granted for so long. And now the CBC getting a little taste of its own medicine, I would say. Officer Chauvin, his conviction for the killing or the death of George Floyd, his sentence upheld today. And we've heard a lot about those Chinese police stations in Canada. Well, they've laid some charges against some people for running what appears to have been a Chinese police station in New York City as well. And then in the face of all this talk that I've just been making reference to about social media platforms, censorship, the struggles of journalists to bring you the truth, or in some cases propaganda. Out in Oklahoma, there were some police officers and public officials who were making references, I guess, to, whether seriously or not, killing journalists. Anyway, there's fallout from that tonight as well. So much to discuss this evening, a lot to talk about, and looking forward very much to our conversation later in the broadcast with Michelle Leduc from the National Citizens Inquiry. So don't go away. I'll be right back, and we will start digging into today's top stories right here on the Maverick News Channel.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Fear not the storm, for truth is on our side. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So first up tonight, a massive nuclear disaster, a threat of a massive nuclear disaster over in on the other side of the pond, as the war in Ukraine rages on. Just want to bring you a little bit from Patrick Lancaster, who is in the thick of things over there, and is drawing all of our attention to the 7th largest nuclear power facility in the world, which is in a direct line of fire.
We are on the front line just between Russian-controlled territory and across the river, the Dnieper River here, Ukraine-controlled territory in a Russian forces bunker on the edge of the city in Ingorod, in the Zaporozhye region. Now, this is a city who has the nuclear power station, the Zaporozhye nuclear power station, and in our other report we showed you some information on that. But here we're on the ground at the front line showing you what the situation is. Now we're going to show you how we got here and what the soldiers here on the ground have to say. Now this nuclear power station is in the top 10 in the world and the biggest in Europe. So this is a very important area here that should not have heavy fighting, but there's still, as we're told by the soldiers here, daily shelling that comes in. And just before we got here, we were told there was a shell. But we're on the ground here to see what the real situation is and how it plays out, to show you exactly what we see with our own eyes. No opinions or anything like this, just the facts. Please like, subscribe, and share. Now let's see this whole position area here and what the soldiers have to say about the situation. I'm Patrick Lancaster, and right now we are in the city of Innogodar, in the I'm Patrick Lancaster, and right now we are in the center of Innogodar in the Zaporozhye region, which is internationally recognized right now as part of Ukraine, but recognized by Russian law as part of Russia. And we are here today to show you the situation here on the ground. The fact is, Russia controls this city and this area since March of last year. And right behind me, you can see the Zaporozhye nuclear power station, which is one of the top 10. In fact, it was ranked as a top number 7 in the world ranking of the size of nuclear power plants, and it is the biggest in Europe. It produced around 13 gigawatts, and it's when it was running, because right now it's not running because of the war, when it was running before 2022, just over a year ago, it was producing over 20% of the energy for all of Ukraine. And we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reactors there. Now, this is the war zone. In fact, this is the front line. Just across the river here, you see Ukrainian controlled territory. We'll give you a zoom of that here. But the fact is that this city, as I said, is controlled by Russia. So as we see in many of these other cities that are controlled by Russia, there's lots of incoming shelling. Of course, there's fighting going back and forth around the area. But the fact is, here on the ground, there's been an increase in shelling, and in fact, just days ago, there was an attack of an attempted incursion by Ukrainian forces onto this territory just across from the plant itself. Now, you've got to think of how dangerous this is, this fighting going on here around a nuclear power plant. And in fact, one this size, I mean, this can cause the death to so many people in this region of the world that it's unfathomable. I mean, just this whole area could just be wiped out if these reactors went up. I mean, you think about Chernobyl, that was small. I mean, if something like that happens here, we're looking at something 5 or 6 times or even more, more of a meltdown than Chernobyl, and more of a pollution of the area and killing of the people. So we're here on the ground to show you what the situation is. We're going to talk to some people, some locals, show you what the life is like here on the ground, and talk to some people that worked at the nuclear power plant itself. Going to come a little closer and also get as close to the very front line, which is just across the woods here on the river, and show you, if we are able, Ukrainian territory adjacent from Russian-controlled territory. And we're going to get go to the edge of the plant itself, show you a little bit around the area. Now, we're just here on the fly because we want you to show you what we can here. But if you'd like, we can come back and organize a trip inside the nuclear power plant itself and show you the intricacies and what's happening inside there. So if you'd like that, comment below. And if we get enough likes and comments wanting that, I'll make sure we do it for you, because you are our bosses. We don't have any other chief editors or anything like that. It's me and you. You tell me what you want to see, and we'll do it, because we're only funded by you, my viewers. So please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and also you can support our work with the link on the screen or in the description.
All right, so that's Patrick Lancaster on the ground doing great work, as always. And yeah, he deserves a lot of support. And I've put the link to his channel and that particular video in the chat, so you can pick up the rest of his presentation over there. And I absolutely wanted to lead the broadcast with that tonight, because the danger is so significant. Attention needs to be focused on that. People need to be aware. That's a potential nuclear meltdown if hit by shelling. The consequences of that, beyond horrific. Absolutely beyond horrific. Can't stress that enough. And thank you to Patrick Lancaster for making us all aware. And please go and check out his channel when you have an opportunity to do that. Now, tonight, we're going to get into, he talked about supporting his channel, and, you know, it's him and you, and it's the same thing here. It's, you know, it's me and you and me, us. We have a community here. And this is an ongoing struggle these days to maintain a channel. This channel, as of today, is officially demonetized by YouTube. They've taken down 2 of our channels, and now this one has been demonetized. There is now absolutely zero money coming in from advertising through YouTube. Not that there was that much to begin with, because all of our content was categorized as controversial and not suitable for many advertisers, because it's political in nature. And they don't like some of the politics that we focus on here. So I'm just making everyone aware of that. If you want this channel to survive with all of the features that we offer here, It's up to you guys to support it. I keep doing the work, and we've only been monetized on YouTube for about the past, 6-7 months or something like that. But it's entirely up to us to keep it going if we want to keep it going. And that is why we are moving everything off to other social media platforms like Rumble, where tonight we will be focusing our attention during the feature interview that we have coming up with Michelle Leduc of the National Citizens Inquiry. You know, it's not just us, though. What goes around comes around. Even the CBC is, I think, getting a taste of, in a way, its own medicine. They have been labeled government-funded media. Okay, I'm going to show you on Twitter. CBC now officially labeled government-funded media. You can see it right there at the very top. And as a result, CBC has announced that they're going to pause its use of Twitter. Not that that label has been applied. So this labeling that happened, I guess, sometime yesterday. And in a statement, CBC Media Relations Director Leon Marr said that Twitter can be a powerful tool for journalists to communicate with Canadians, but it undermines the accuracy and professionalism of the work they do to allow our independence to be falsely described in this way. What are you talking about? They're absolutely government funded. It's truth. They just don't want people to think about it that way. He goes on and says, consequently, we will be pausing our activity on our corporate Twitter account and all CBC and Radio Canada news-related accounts. Oh, but it's true. It's absolutely true. I don't think they've ever received more funding from the government. Twitter's website defines government-funded media as outlets where the government provides some or all of the outlet's funding and may have varying degrees of government involvement over editorial content. Twitter's policy links to a Wikipedia page listing publicly funded broadcasters. It said it may use in determining when this label should be applied. So the CBC's board of directors determines how the funding it receives is spent. And during the 2021-2022 fiscal year, the CBC received $1.2 billion. That's with a B. $1.2 billion in government funding. A decrease from about $1.4 billion the year before. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. They received other revenue of $650 million in that same fiscal year and $500 million the year before that. So, I mean, the bulk of their money comes from the government. It always has. So to sit there and complain about it and say that they're being falsely labeled, how could it be anything but accurate? It's it's a joke to say that. Nothing to see here, folks. It's not what you think. Yes, it is. It's exactly what we know. It's exactly what we see. 1.2 billion last year. Billion. Oh, wow. The money. And they always plead poverty. I know for years, even some of the journalists that they employ are not even full-time. They have them on contract, part-time contract reporters, the CBC state broadcaster. I think that's because so much money lays along the top layer. and then the crumbs filter down. Now, if you work for the CBC as a journalist and you have a full-time gig there, you are very well paid. I know that from some of the people I've known over the years who have worked there. But, then there are the people who are just perpetually employed on contract, and they hope that their contract gets renewed and renewed and renewed and renewed. They're basically perpetual freelancers, and, they get paid okay, but they don't always get full-time work, and sometimes it's not that great. And they're always hoping that they get hired on into a full-time staff gig. It's the way it works over there. Great work if you can get it, except that, they control you and exert a lot of editorial control over everything you do, such is the case with all the mainstream media outlets these days. Trust me, I know. Wow. So let me see what else I have here on this. Here's the it's not fair. We're not really there. We're not state media. Yes, you are. So here's what, if you click now on the CBC link on Twitter, it goes to this page, this Twitter page about government and media account labels on Twitter. And it says here, it explains that labels on government accounts provide additional context for accounts heavily engaged in geopolitics and diplomacy. Labels on state-affiliated accounts provide additional context about accounts that are controlled by certain official representatives of governments, state-affiliated media entities, and individuals associated with those entities. The label appears on the profile page of relevant Twitter account and on the tweets sent by and shared from these accounts. Labels contain information about the country the account is affiliated with and whether it is operated by a government representative or state-affiliated media entity. Additionally, these labels include a small icon of a flag to signal the account's status as a government account and of a podium for state-affiliated media. And thank goodness for that finally. Honestly, I don't have an issue with this, man. I think that's fair. How government accounts are defined. Our focus, it says here on this Twitter page, is on senior officials and entities that are the official voice of the nation state abroad, specifically accounts of key government officials, including foreign ministers, institutional entities, official spokespeople, and key diplomatic leaders. Where accounts do not play a role as a geopolitical or official government communication channel, we will not label the account. Additionally, labels will distinguish between individual government accounts and institutional government accounts. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so a lot of blah blahs there, but that is the fact. That's the way it is. And that is something now the CBC has to wear because the shoe fits. Where did all this come from? Well, in part, directly from conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who about 5 days ago asked Twitter to label the CBC as government-funded media. I'm surprised this happened, honestly, but, well, maybe Elon Musk got the memo directly. You go back 5 days ago, and you had Pierre Poilievre asking Twitter to apply the government-funded label on the accounts associated with the CBC. And all of that was met with cries of, no, we're actually independent from the CBC. And other public broadcasters as well, who say, oh, yes, well, we might get some money, but we're actually editorially independent. Not true. You can't tell me that you receive $1.2 billion in government funding and you are entirely unbiased. You don't get that kind of paycheck and not not feel the pressure in at least some way to slant your coverage just a little bit. 1.2 billion. Now, I will say that the CBC used to be, I think, pretty darn good at providing some balanced coverage of the news of the day and reflecting Canadian culture and serving the country. But especially over the past 3 years, well, even more, I would say especially since 2016, it has become so slanted that it's just blatant. It's actually a little bit stomach turning. So he did send a letter addressed to Twitter. That I'm talking about Pierre Poilievre, the conservative leader, about a week ago. And he did ask Twitter to apply that label to CBC's English news-related accounts. He did not actually mention Radio-Canada, the French language arm, but it's pretty clear that what Poilievre has done here has sparked or provided the motivation to Twitter to go ahead and take this action. Wow. And so, because he asked for it a week ago, he was attacked by the Liberals, saying, this is an attack by Poilievre on journalists. Here's Justin Trudeau today responding to what has happened to the CBC.
Aux États-Unis.
Here it comes.
Je sais pas, pour moi, ça souligne un désalignement de valeurs et un manque de compréhension d'à quel point les Canadiens sont fiers de nos institutions et n'aiment pas qu'on aille demander à des milliardaires américains de venir nous aider à s'attaquer, les aider à s'attaquer à nos institutions. I think it says a lot about the Conservative Party of Canada, that they're choosing to constantly attack independent media organizations, journalists who are working hard to keep Canadians informed and support our democracy. CBC Radio-Canada serves right across the country, delivers local news and local content in many regions of the country that, yes, has been challenged over the past years, but the idea of adding to that challenges and laying on by attacking this Canadian institution, attacking the culture and local content that is so important to so many Canadians, really indicates the values and the approach that Mr. Poilievre is putting forward. And I think it is telling that in order to attack this institution that is important for many, many Canadians, he runs to American billionaires, the tech giants that they continue to defend in committee and in their approach on our legislation to make tech giants pay their fair share. Conservatives are always there to defend them. So when they're trying to attack a foundational Canadian institution, the fact that he has to run to American billionaires for support to attack Canadians says a lot about Mr. Poilievre and his values.
Oh, he smirked. He smirked at the end. He smirked.
Demain soir, il y aura grève générale mercredi matin.
He actually smirked at the end.
De 13,5% sur 3 ans. Qu'est-ce que vous dites aux Canadiens qui risquent d'être confrontés?
Sorry, he did. He smirked. Poilievre was not attacking Canadians. He's just asking Twitter to let people know that what they're looking at when looking at CBC content, there might be a little bit of bias there. Might be a little bit pro-government. Thank goodness for Elon Musk taking over Twitter. I mean, I'm not a great big fan of electric cars, but that almost makes me want to run out and buy a Tesla. Oh, my. And the CBC did not need to suspend its operations. It didn't need to pull off Twitter. There was no real penalty there. It's just a label. It's just a shoe that fits. So they threw a hissy fit and they just said, we're not going to play anymore. We quit. Well, over that, because somebody is out there telling people exactly what you really are. It's accurate. It's true. 1.2 billion times over. True. Billion with a B. Your tax dollars. It's not an attack on anybody. As some of you know, I do run a television show, self-syndicated. It runs on some stations in the United States. In order to do that, I had to sign a declaration stating that I receive no money from any foreign government. In fact, we receive no fund. I receive no money from any government. In fact, that whole entire program receives no funding from anyone at all. No funding. It's entirely self-supported through me. That's it. Even this show here, my car show. CBC can't say that. Nobody funds this news platform either. I receive no funding from any corporation, from any company. In fact, I've turned sponsors away from this show because I want to maintain my independence. Everything that I do on my car show, self-funded. We sell products around that show to fund the operation. Products that we source and then sell. I don't even sell the products on here because I've been afraid of just the image of selling stuff on here. Even these shirts. I got these shirts made finally because people have been asking for them. These t-shirts. Oh, it's upside down. There it is. I got some of these things made up, and I haven't even put them on a website for sale because I've been afraid of being accused of grifting. I've sent some out, a few free ones. I'm sending out a few more to a few people who've done some stuff. But you know what? It's like no funding. The only funding this thing gets is from you. And I'm okay with that because it's like you are the community. This is your channel. This is our community. And everybody just contributes. So on an individual basis, there's no real coercion there editorially for me from anybody to any significant degree where I'm influenced over anything that I do. So that's the reason why, when I worked in mainstream media, even there was always this line, the invisible line between the sales department and the news department. Sometimes I watched it get blurry, and there was absolute influence there from time to time. And sometimes the sales guys would walk over the line because I worked, mainly in privately owned media outlets, right? So very little, if any, government funding back in those days for these operations. It was all advertising dollars. So the ad guys would sometimes come over, whether it was a radio station or sometimes on TV. And they'd say, Joe Smith is opening a stereo shop down the street. And, it'd be really nice if somebody would just stop by there and do a story about him opening up. So there was that kind of thing that went on from time to time. Some of it was, pretty much harmless, I guess. And sometimes as a journalist, and I'm just being transparent with you, you would be sent out to do stories without being told that that's the reason why. But in the back of your mind, you were like, I think I'm over here because the sales department went to see the news director. Like the one place I worked at every Friday night for a while, they were sending me down to a bar where they would have the band of the week playing. And they would put me up by the stage in a speaker and they'd do a live hit. And I'd have to tell everybody what was going on down there. And they never said, the bar is paying, running ads on the channel or whatever. But you knew, but it was local. It was, I guess a positive thing for the community to have, the business activity down there in the town's downtown. So it was like some of that stuff was okay, but sometimes you'd have to kind of go, I don't know about this. Feels kind of like a commercial. So you always tried to strike that balance, and try to maintain your impartiality. But in the real world, it's sometimes difficult. As another example, years and years ago, working in TV, I was over at the Detroit Auto Show, and this goes back many, 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 many years ago. And I won't name the brands, but I was standing there and I was about to do a live hit, and there was a camera guy with me, and he had his headphones on, and he could hear master control, right? So then he says to me, "They want us to move." And I said, "Oh, okay. What do you want?" He says, "They wanted you just stand over here." So I had to walk around and stand in a different spot, just like on the other side of the camera. He turns the camera in the other direction, and I'm looking over my shoulder. And yeah, there was a brand of an automotive brand that I knew advertised on the station every night around the newscast too. So instead of showing the brand that was behind me originally, they just had me walk around 180 degrees and made sure that it was the other company's products that were behind me at the time. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Not that I said anything or did anything that promoted that particular brand in anything that I said that evening, but I was aware of what they were doing. And really, there's no control that you really have at that point, because they're saying, you stand on your mark over there, pal. That's your job. And you just deliver your script, right? But no question, that's what they were doing at the time. They didn't say it outright or blatantly, but yeah. And everybody knows that kind of stuff goes on. And Mouth of the South is, yes, that's right, at Cobo Hall in Detroit. That was a long time ago. And you can figure out which brand it probably was. And that's okay. And maybe even that isn't such a bad thing, because, it's all about, to a degree, as long as there isn't real influence over the editorial content, I guess there was no real harm done. But those things do make a difference in the long run. So just stuff to keep in mind. And so, yes, what I'm going to have to do here, though, is because of what is happening with YouTube. I mean, it's just, they are relentless. And I don't know why, but right now it seems like they are hammering on a lot of different people. They're like on this banning spree, and they're just bringing down the authoritarian hammer on all the different channels and content creators that they seem to have a beef with. I don't know why this is suddenly happening right now, or maybe it's just me being overly sensitized to it because it's happened to me, or maybe because people are telling me more about it because they see it happening here. But I'm aware of this same kind of punishment being dished out in many other places. In fact, tomorrow night on the show, we should have John Mark Dugan on. He's scheduled to do an appearance here with us tomorrow evening. And as you know, he's a journalist who works over in Russia. So we've had him on the program before. He's scheduled to make a repeat appearance here tomorrow. And I know that his YouTube channel was recently demonetized as well. So they've gone after him. He's not the only one. Many, many others as well. So what am I going to do about it? Well, there's not a whole lot I can do except, I'm going to begin to take steps to survive, essentially, and make this channel or make this operation resilient enough to survive this. It seems to happen to a lot of different creators when you hit a certain size, I think, as well, right? So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to try to get people over to Rumble as much as we can. I put the link in the description or in the content chat area, so you can follow that link over to the Rumble channel tonight. And once you get over there, if you subscribe, that will, of course, keep you in the loop when we post new content. There might be opportunity to remonetize this channel at some point. I'm not holding my breath. We may go through a rebranding, a reworking of what this channel looks like, how it operates, and I don't want to elaborate on that too much more at this point because I don't want to let all the cats out of the bag. I'll tell you this, YouTube is not the only one taking shots at us. As you know, because we've been critical, and I think fairly, as in we have been fair, we've been critical of certain individuals and organizations on many different sides of the political spectrum. We're kind of getting attacked from a variety of people as well. And I think that has contributed to what is going on here right now on YouTube, because it's like low-hanging fruit for those who want to come after us. And you've heard even some of the people in the call-in portion of the program calling in and being, I would say, to a degree, disruptive. You've seen what's been going on in the chat for months with, I would suggest to you, planted trolls who have been unleashed on the channel to be disruptive and destructive. Intentionally, it's all part of a concerted effort to destroy this channel. It's been an interesting experience over the past year and a half running this channel. I can tell you that every day, and this is newsworthy in itself, because in a way we are making news along with other independent content creators and journalists just by running a channel like this. This has been for me something of an experiment in real time, an exercise in journalistic ethics and practices in real time. It's an exploration of how to use a new medium. It has been strange to see the attacks come in. It's been exciting to create content, engage in my craft of journalism, have instant feedback through the chat, and then also sometimes actually have news unfold in real time through the live stream and have real-time interaction from newsmakers who in real time see the stories being told here and then have them react and actually come on and join the broadcast and respond and engage in interviews, again, in real time. That has been really, really kind of cool. It's a new experience And even during the Emergencies Act inquiry, if you recall, Brendan Miller, the lawyer, made the accusations against that person in that media company that he said was carrying the Nazi flag. And he said that that was the guy who did it. And they traced it back to this person. And so I immediately made contact with that person and got comment where that person denied the accusations that Brendan Miller asserted. And I had that within minutes, live, right here. And we were the first to get that into the show. I thought that was really cool. A lot different than working in television back in the day. And pretty powerful stuff. It allows you to engage in journalism in real time and not just actually report the news, but immerse yourself on the outer edges of the news story and pull it in and report it live in real time. And actually, because of your reporting, you actually begin to, at sometimes, influence the content, which is not really what your intent is, but inevitably that is what happens. As Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message, right? So this kind of takes that to a whole new level. The medium dictates what the content ends up being. It's a complex idea, but it really is true. If it wasn't for the internet, that content on that day when I made that contact with that newsmaker to get the response from Brendan Miller, the lawyer at the Emergencies Act inquiry, that would have taken a lot longer, certainly would not have happened in real time. The comment would have come, then it would have been processed, then it would have been put to air, time would have transpired. This was like bam, 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 bam. And when we're here talking about things, sometimes people even call in, newsmakers call into the show, or they join us live on the program. And that becomes part of the story. The news story becomes integrated into the program. That raises all kinds of other ethical issues as well. But, as a result of all that, what I've also found is that it has been an exploration of freedom. The concepts of freedom of speech, free media, freedom of expression. And I can tell you that right now I'm being attacked in emails from people who are accusing me now of censorship, which I think is completely absurd. Why are they accusing me of censorship? Because we've been banning some people in the chat. You know why? It's because they've been sending people in to be intentionally disruptive. People who don't like what we've been reporting. So, in the past, without this kind of interactive medium, whether it was television or newspapers or radio, you would speak to the people. But here we're speaking with people. We're speaking with you. You are part of the conversation. The call-in portion of the show provides a lot of that. Having guests appear on the program live is part of that. The medium is such that it's all integrated, but the people who don't like freedom of speech, when you're saying something they don't agree with, they want to shut you down. And now, because it is interactive, they can actually attack you in real time, and they come in here and they've been trying to do that. As you know, I've had to spend a considerable amount of money on cybersecurity because they've been attacking all of our social media platforms. They've been attacking these channels. They come into the chat. They do all these things to try to suppress and cancel and actually have it shut down. So I know right now there's a giant smear campaign on out there about me and about this channel because some people didn't like some of the things that we said. And these are people who purport to be free speech advocates. They're freedom fighters. No, they're not. They're fake freedom fighters. They don't believe in free speech at all. They believe in free speech for them, and anybody that they don't believe in, if they don't agree with them, they want you shut down. Well, have at it. Good job. Remember that, folks. Or these same people are the ones who are like, don't watch that channel. Don't watch that Rick Walker guy. And I'm not the only one that they attack like that. There are other people too. Shouldn't listen to him. What a joke. Freedom. Yeah, you believe in freedom, and then you want to shut a YouTube channel down, right? And why am I attacked for engaging in censorship? Because every single day, folks, I have people who want access to you. They want access to the audience. All kinds of people messaging me with video links that they want me to run, with messages that they want me to say, articles that they want me to talk about, subject matter that they just want me to focus on. They want to come on the show. They want to appear on here so that they can deliver their message, their agenda from different sides. And if I don't use their material, if I don't say what they want to say, if I don't say what they want me to say, they're now accusing me of being a censor. Well, let me explain it to you. I'm under no obligation here to say anything for anyone. Nor are you obligated to say anything in the chat or to come on here and say anything that I might hope that you want to say. I'm not censoring anybody. Anybody out there is free to start their own YouTube channel or their own Facebook page or say whatever you want, any place you want to say it. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find any other YouTube channel out there that gives people more access than this one. I take the phone calls here on the call-in portion of the show, and I have no idea what people are going to throw at me. It could be any subject at any time. I don't know what's fairer than that. And every night I try to take every single call. And I pretty well do that. Sometimes I stay on later just to try to get through all the calls when we do go to the call-in portion of the program. I don't always get through them all. Sometimes I have to leave a few people hanging because it just gets to be so late, but rarely does that happen. I usually take every single call, and it doesn't matter what people throw at me, I generally respond. I've only ever hung up on a few people, and that's because they've been just so disruptive that it really has left me very little choice. And yeah, I never wanted to ban anybody in the chat. That's what I mean. This whole thing has been an experiment. And this in itself is, I think, newsworthy in a way, because I tried to have a no ban policy for a long time in that chat. And for a long time, we didn't ban anybody. But then the trolls came. And yeah, I started to ban the spam bots, trying to send you to sex channels. Got rid of those. Those were disruptive. Is that censorship? Well, it started there. Bam, 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 ban, ban, ban. I had to ban all those bots because somebody unleashed bots. Or maybe it was a bot that unleashed the bots. I don't know. But that was going on for a while. I think sometimes we still get the occasional bot spam party going on in there. But then, I tried to do some positive things by focusing on some negative people, trying to do some bad things, doing my job as a journalist, not just cheerleading, but exposing where exposure was warranted. And oh, did that unleash a firestorm, right? Yeah. So then the trolls came en masse, and all the attacks began. And the weirdness started too. I noticed, really weird, dark stuff going on in there. And the attacks, the personal attacks on people. So we had to deal with it. Because in a way, this community has been a reflection of what any community would be, even a country. You could look at this YouTube channel as a sovereign nation unto itself in the digital space, where We have a country, a sovereign nation, right? I'm a gatekeeper. That's basically what I am. I'm the border guard. Maybe I'm the grand poobah. I don't know, whatever you want to call my position here, but I have a position of responsibility. And the reality is that freedom does not mean people get to do whatever they want. And that is the same with any democracy, any free nation on earth. Freedom doesn't mean ultimate freedom. It doesn't mean you get to go out and kill someone. Freedom of speech doesn't mean you get to go around slandering people or defaming people or attacking people or hurting people with your words. There are laws. There are laws about it, right? And people have to adhere to those laws. Where do those laws come from? Well, they come from the community. Basically, what you're talking about in a situation like that is community standards. It's like, what do you guys as a community here, what are you willing to tolerate? How tolerance, right? That's the word I keep using. And there it just came up right there. How much are you willing to tolerate? How much free speech are you willing to tolerate? Well, I can tell you that the people coming in, those trolls, some of them pretending or thinking or saying that they're all about freedom of speech, have been in there attacking some of you personally, attacking me, and I can take quite a bit of it, but attacking me personally, just hurling insults. And really, they've been in there intentionally, just trying to stir things up. And RV, Mr. Multiple Personalities, was in there for a while saying, come on, ban me, do it, ban me. He wanted to get banned. Even then I tried to resist. What a weird experiment this has been. What a weird experience. Ban me, he says, so that if you ban him, then he goes off like he's doing right now. He's been off, I know, at another channel saying, yep, he doesn't believe in free speech. He banned me. I just received another email from somebody else overnight. The word's out on you. The word's out on you. You don't believe in free speech. You ban people. You're far right. Oh, okay. Doesn't mean, folks, that I'm going to sit here and tolerate people coming in, threatening any of you, doxing you, following you around the internet, harassing you. That's been something that they've been doing too. Watching so that if I put up a Facebook link and they're looking to see, or they go on my Facebook page to see who's on my friends list so that they can chase or harass other people that they think are watchers of the program. That's happened. The freedom movement is made up of different groups of people. And there's a group of people in there who are pretty bad apples. And they've been, that's really where most of this has come from. I'm just being straight up honest with you. And because of that, this whole freedom movement thing, man, you're kind of losing me. Because that's not freedom. That's freaking fascism. You're just as bad or worse than the people on the other side, the government side, who want to oppress us with censorship. That's your form of cancellation. You're engaging in the exact same kind of activity. That little group of people. Those are the ones who sit there and go, you shouldn't listen to those people. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Don't watch anybody else. Just listen to us. Yeah, really? Well, that's what's been going on. So you see, this channel is getting hammered. Because we've been hammered from the left as well, the woke left. The woke left who have tried to cancel us because they don't like some of the stuff that we report on here either. So YouTube doesn't like us. The left doesn't like us. The far, far right doesn't like us. Some of the radical whack jobs don't like us. We're under attack from all over the place, and I don't care. I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep on keeping on. I have one objective, and that is to pursue the truth and to serve the public. That's you. So I will always try to do the right thing. I will always try to pursue that objective. That's sort of the standard for me, right? That's the question. Does it serve the public interest? That's where I'm at. I'm not here to cheerlead. I'm not on anybody's team anymore. Just the public's. That's always been my yardstick by which I measure things. It has always been the case. Continues to be. And that will continue to be the case as I try to survive this onslaught. Whoop-de-doo. They demonetized this. Whoop-de-doo. You got trolls. Whoop-de-doo. I know what's going on out there. You know how I know we're doing the right thing? Because all this is happening. They're attacking us, attacking me. Okay, I said before, if it costs me the channel, it costs us the channel. Big deal. Whoop-de-doo. It's a YouTube channel. If I'm not allowed to come back on ever again, if they take it down and I lose all the subscribers and I can't build it back up, I'll just go back to my other life. Congratulations, trolls and all you fake freedom fighters, for the reports and the complaints and the negative emails and your efforts to take this channel down. We're still running strong on the other social media platforms and growing. And we're getting a lot more traction over on Rumble. And I would suggest to you that pretty soon YouTube, in the overall scheme of things, is going to be somewhat irrelevant, rendered thus by their own actions. What a crazy business model. Attack your content creators on a platform that relies on content creators for its content. Suppress information on an information-based platform. Duh. People are leaving you in droves. Massive. A huge migration to other media platforms. It's crazy times, man. But somehow truth will prevail. Somehow free speech will prevail. Somehow it will all work out. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I do know this. This is all very, very, very new. The media, these platforms, they're all new. It is still an experiment. We're still finding our way. We're exploring again all of these issues that have been explored many times over time through different technological developments. The idea of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of media, all of these things have been explored time and time again at various intervals through history. When the Gutenberg printing press came along, it changed the dynamic of communication. It was empowering, but at the same time, there were efforts to suppress. When radio came along, again, it changed everything. A huge shift in the dynamic of communications. Television, incredibly powerful at the time. Motion pictures, go back before that. Motion pictures in theaters, right? The way people were absorbing information. People were not media literate at all back then. The way that they saw stuff. I mean, think back then, if you took someone from that time period, the period when, Thomas Edison was, making motion picture machines, and then people at that time, when they saw a train coming, They thought it was real. They saw a picture of a train being projected, and some of the people thought that it was actually real, and it scared them. Imagine if you took that person and transplanted them into today's realm where we have deep fakes on the internet. They wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They'd be like, what is this? This digital technology, what is it? They wouldn't even understand. But at each moment in time when these new technologies were developed and then unleashed upon the public, we've all had to adapt, become more media savvy, more media literate. And I'll tell you, a lot of people are very media literate right now because they know how to use it for both good and for evil. And some of the people that you think are doing good things are actually engaged in very evil things. And we're all being manipulated in ways that we don't even understand. Because we don't even see it, because this is still so new. And this channel is like a micro snapshot of this huge macro info war scenario experiment. A digital information nation. That's what this is. We are a semi-sovereign nation because we don't have full control over everything that happens here. And, that's the other thing. It's not just the community standards that we're trying to engage in here or support. It's also the community standards of YouTube that we have to abide by. It's the community standards of Facebook that we have to abide by. And when I've been sitting here saying, don't use this word, don't use that word. If you're talking about the thing in the arm, call it Kool-Aid so that we don't get into any trouble. That's not me. Those are the community standards or the corporate standards being imposed by those social media platforms so that we can just continue to use them. Are they within their rights as privately owned corporations to impose those restrictions? Yes, I suppose they are. There's nothing I can do about that. If we want to continue to use them, then we have to zip it. Otherwise, we get what we're getting. And even though I've been zipping it, we're still getting hammered. Why is that? Well, I gave you a bunch of the reasons. Some of it is because we've pushed the boundaries a little bit. I can tell you right now that probably the reason it happened is because we have our guest coming on tonight, Michelle Leduc from the National Citizens Inquiry. What was in the thumbnail? Picture of her and the logo, and they don't like that. And we've been broadcasting it, and we've been pushing the envelope on it. Why? Because we do believe in free speech. I'm not about censorship. Not at all. Quite the contrary. But this gives motivation to the powers above us, the corporate powers that control the platforms, to impose this kind of censorship and oppression. Have to deal with it. But it does make you think about what are your rights? What rights are appropriate? Is the government overreaching when they're trying to suppress our rights? Look at what Trudeau said today. And this is all relevant. And that's why me talking about this here right now, what's happening with this channel, is entirely tied to what he said today about CBC being labeled a government-funded media outlet by Twitter. And then he's complaining about it, and the CBC is complaining about it when they receive $1.2 billion. It's entirely connected. But to come back to the point that I was about to make, this is also something, it's a situation where you and I need to ask ourselves, what is freedom? How much freedom is warranted? And I'll put it to you this way. Canada, as an example, and the United States as well, but I'll use Canada because I'm Canadian, has a constitution. The constitution is written in such a way that it limits our freedoms. At least that's the way I look at it, and that's the way I believe that the Constitution was originally intended to function, with our Bill of Rights and then subsequently the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which was added in the 1980s. The whole idea is that you get your rights when you're born from a higher place, like God. Even if you don't believe in God, you still have these rights, the right to free speech, right to mobility, freedom of the person, right? All these different natural rights, if you will. And these rights are then acknowledged in the Constitution. And why are they written into the Constitution? It isn't because government gives you your rights. You already have those rights. It's up to the government to protect those rights. But we as a society and as a community also use that Constitution to impose certain limits on people's rights in order to protect the community, to protect individuals, in order to protect people through community standards, which we collectively all agree upon through the democratic process. For instance, I don't have the right to go out and murder someone. If you had a completely free society, you would basically have anarchy. No law, no rule of law, no government to enforce laws. You would just be able to freely murder someone and just do it with impunity. Well, that's no good for society. So we make laws against that. And we as a community agree that you shouldn't go murder someone. And if you do, you're going to prison. So that's one example. Same thing here. People can't just come in here and say whatever they want. If it hurts somebody, if it's slanderous, if it's like truly slanderous, I mean, like where you're saying things about someone that is completely, absolutely not true and is defamatory, that's real slander. Now, if you're saying something that's true, it might hurt, but that's something else again. Is it justifiable to ban someone in the chat if they're in there attacking, harassing other people in the chat, being disruptive and intentionally trying to be so disruptive that they're trying to make other people leave the chat and unsubscribe, or even if it's just a personal fight that's disruptive to everyone? It's like having a street brawl in the middle of downtown. Well, that's not right for other people to have to put up with that behavior, right? So yeah, there are laws against public disturbance. So do I have the level of sophistication here in a written list of community standards that we employ here? No. Because why? It's still an experiment. And in that regard, it's like this digital info nation is still evolving over time. So yeah, people coming in here, you come in here, you start attacking people, threatening people, causing problems, you're going to get banned. And yeah, we've got a couple of moderators in there, and I support them because they've been doing a great job. They've been upholding the community standards, and I support what they've been doing because I'm the gatekeeper. Somebody has to be, I guess. I didn't want to be, but I guess I am. And I couldn't just allow the free-for-all to continue in there because people were coming in and intentionally not engaging in free speech. They were engaging in vandalism. And so the guy who sent me the email last night, stuff it, okay? Don't waste your time with me. I did send a response back. He knows. People are just doing this to try to get a rise out of me, to get me angry, whatever. Be gone with you, sir. Be gone with all of you. If you're just a troll here to disrupt, please go away and please unsubscribe. Enough. Enough of your silliness. We want you not here. Do I ban people? Yep. You come in here, you engage in vandalism, I'll ban your ass. Didn't want to, but that's not on me, man. That's on you. It's on all of you. All the disruptors. And it's not just me, it's the community. I'll tell you this, the community will support it. The other people will support that because they're being hurt by it. You are violating their freedoms by engaging in that kind of behavior. So, is freedom ultimate? No. Are some limits on freedom justified in a society? Absolutely. It's necessary. That is why we have laws. That's why we have the rule of law. That is why we as a society, in a democratic society, we have police to enforce those community standards through laws and through the rule of law. And sometimes that means you get arrested, or in this case, you get your ass banned out of the chat. So quit your whining because you know that you deserve it. That's the way the real world works. And thank God we live in a democracy. And I know that a lot of people sit there and complain and bellyache. But the reality is, even in our heavily oppressed, heavily censored society today, we still do actually have some rights that do function properly. We're not allowed to protest at all. And then people go out and protest, and I see them protesting when they say that the government is preventing them from protesting. Yes, there are some limits and restrictions imposed upon it. Yeah, and I know that some of those restrictions are maybe overbearing, but the reality is these are fluid things that we're always constantly engaged in and fighting with. That is why also, I have to say, I am not in favor of tearing down the whole damn country. Because by and large, over the past, in Canada, 150 years, and in the US for over 2 centuries, these rules, these standards, these constitutions have generally worked. Therefore, I am, more of a constitutionalist. Do we have governments right now that are abusing the constitutions? Yep. Are they engaging in overreach? Yep. What do we need to do about that? Get active, fight back constructively within the system, make things work, take it back politically, peacefully, properly, using the system. And mark my words, governments will change. They will change over time. Because why? Because we do have community standards. And yeah, I know Agenda 2030, the World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, all these globalists, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I know, all big challenges. But why are we getting it? Because a lot of people out there have been supporting governments, politicians who subscribe to that kind of thinking. People have voted for it, either knowingly or unknowingly. And a lot of the time, and in many cases, the politicians haven't really told us that they wanted to do these things. And yeah, they have signed agreements to give away much of our sovereignty. But that isn't permanent. That's not constitutional. The constitutions are still there. And all of those agreements can be rescinded, or we can just walk away from them as a sovereign nation state. And we are a sovereign nation state in Canada and in the US. It's a real thing. We have real countries. So you elect the right people, you get the right thing going, and all of that goes away. But that's up to us, the people. And that doesn't mean that you have to overthrow the entire government to start from scratch. It means that you have to voice your opposition, let the politicians know, hold them accountable, and use the elections, use the democratic process. I've been saying this all along anyway. You can overthrow the whole government. You could get a merry band of merry marauders together, go out and overthrow your government, and still not solve the problem. You need to win the hearts and the minds of the people. You need to change public opinion. Until you do that, you're not going to win anything. Even if because if your merry band of marauders goes and successfully overthrows anything, All you're going to get then is a dictatorship, because then they're going to have to dictate, aren't they? Well, I'll tell you who wants to do that. The same damn people who have been over here trying to shut this channel down. Same ones. Be careful who you follow. You might just get them what they want. I don't know how much more I need to tell you, how further I need to go to warn you. They are lying to you, deceiving you, not telling you whole truths. And they've exposed themselves for what they truly are over here. And the results of that we're experiencing tonight. Because what's happening to this channel is not just organic, and it is not just because YouTube decided to target this channel. It's happening because of a concerted, targeted campaign. Where did it come from? I'm telling you right now, folks, that did not come from the woke left. Oh, they tried their best too to do things, but even they, with all of their organization, I'm telling you right now that it came from the fake freedom fighters, the fakers. Not all of them, the bad apples out there. I know this to be true because I've spent a lot of money on cybersecurity and I've been tracking everything. I know more or less where it's coming from, and a lot more than less. And yeah, a lot of it is YouTube. Yeah, these trolls that have been in there, and you know them. You've seen some of them, but they're fake accounts. They're fake names. Yeah, what they stand for, it's not freedom, but it absolutely starts with an F. Think about it.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, we're going to come back to Pierre Poilievre there in a moment. But first up, not first up tonight, but next up, in Canada, federal workers could go on strike as early as Wednesday if they don't reach some sort of a deal with the government. Canada's largest federal public service union is looking for a deal. And if they don't get one by Wednesday, 9 p.m., or actually 9 p.m. tomorrow night, rather, it will go on strike, apparently, they say, on Wednesday. PSAC, the Public Service Alliance of Canada, says about 155,000 employees are ready to walk off the job beginning, as I say, Wednesday, and that includes 35,000 workers from the Canada Revenue Agency. Everybody seems most worried about that because of their tax refunds, which is really money that the government took from you. And it is a refund because it was your money to begin with, and they just took more than they were supposed to, so then you get it back. But I digress. So we're watching that, and as Leo said, Mouth of the South the other day, that could affect things at border crossings as well, because customs officers are federal employees. and the staff there at the borders. So I don't know how that would play out. But we're definitely keeping a very close eye on all of it. Now, I'm going to take a brief break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about Pierre Poilievre and Chinese election interference and a Chinese police station in New York City.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so to get into this next segment, let's go straight to question period. Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, again on this issue of foreign election interference.
Mr. Speaker, we already knew that intelligence services have stated that the Beijing Communist regime disbursed $114,000 to the Trudeau Foundation in order to influence the Liberal leader, who's now the Prime Minister of Canada. We've now learnt that it was his brother who signed the agreement to receive this money. Does the Prime Minister agree to invite his brother to bear witness before a parliamentary committee in order to answer to questions? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, like the Prime Minister has already confirmed a number of times, he has no relation with this non-partisan organization. He hasn't had any relations for 10 years.
L'opposition. Well, it's definitely a family business for this Prime Minister, whether it was the We Charity paying his brother and mother money, the Prime Minister claiming to know nothing about it as he handed $500 million over to that organization, or the Trudeau Foundation, which got $140,000 from the dictatorship in Beijing for the specific purpose of influencing his decisions in politics. But now we know that his brother, his own brother, was the one that negotiated and signed the deal to receive the money. Will the Prime Minister accept to call his brother to a parliamentary committee to answer questions about this?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The Leader of the Opposition knows well that the Prime Minister has not been involved with that foundation for approximately a decade, that his fixation with the Prime Minister's family is well known for its partisan interests, and that he wishes to pursue those partisan interests, Mr. Speaker. But the Prime Minister and the government is not engaged with that foundation.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Well, if the Prime Minister has nothing to hide and no relationships whatsoever with the foundation, he'll have no problem inviting his brother to testify before a parliamentary committee under oath about the money that the foundation received for the specific purpose of influencing the Prime Minister. Now, on to another Liberal falsehood. They told us that the carbon tax would make emissions go down. Well, the new report out shows that for the most recent years, emissions went up. Wow. The tax goes up, the emissions goes up. And now Canadians are expected to pay a net $1,500. Given that everything they've said about this tax is false, will they axe the tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the Conservatives just don't see Mr. Speaker. The climate rebate puts more money in people's pockets. 8 out of 10 families will be better off. Look at page 5 of the original PBO report, Mr. Speaker. What won't leave families better off is investing in cryptocurrency, Mr. Speaker. That was reckless advice by the leader of the opposition. I've invited him to stand in this House and apologize now for the 4th time. Will he stand up now and apologize to Canadians?
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Another falsehood. I'll read directly from the report written by the parliamentary budget officer who was appointed by this prime minister. On page 3, he says that, for example, an Ontario family will pay on average $1,820 more in carbon tax costs than they get back in these phony rebate checks. Prince Edward Island, $1,500. Newfoundland and Labrador, $1,300. I could go on. In every single province, the majority of people pay far more in taxes than they get back in benefits from this scam, Mr. Speaker. Given that it's been false, won't they axe the tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And good news, Mr. Speaker. On April 14th, climate rebate checks started to arrive in people's mailboxes. A family of 4 in my home province of Manitoba will receive $1,000. That's $250 quarterly, Mr. Speaker. That's going to help with cash flow. That's going to help with affordability. The Conservatives don't seem to be interested in either, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Okay, so enough of that. So just back to the issue of China, influence, money, elections, Chinese police stations. You know that we've had this whole issue about Chinese police stations in Canada. Well, not just in Canada, but also in New York City. So 2 Chinese nationals have been charged with running a CCP police station in New York City. And if they're convicted, they could face up to 5 years in prison for conspiring to act as agents of the Chinese and up to 20 years in prison for obstructing justice. So they were doing this allegedly for a provincial branch of the Ministry of Public Security of the People's Republic of China. Who's charged? Harry Liu Jianwang, 61 years old, of the Bronx, and Chen Jingping, 59 years old, of Manhattan, both charged with acting as agents of the Chinese government and obstructing justice by destroying evidence of their communications with an MPS official. Those are the allegations. So these 2 guys established the first overseas police station in the United States on behalf of the Fuzz Hao branch of the MPS, allegedly. Where was this? Apparent or alleged police station. It was located on a floor in an office building in Manhattan's Chinatown. It was shut down in the fall of 2022 after the FBI launched an investigation. Liu apparently had a long-standing relationship with Chinese law enforcement, including the MPS, according to authorities, and was tasked with carrying out various activities to assist the Chinese government's repressive activities on U.S. soil. Again, these are the allegations. So these alleged activities included counter-protests against members of a forbidden religion, harassing a Chinese fugitive to return to China, and locating a pro-democracy activist living in California. Liu and Chen are both accused of obstructing the FBI's investigation by deleting their communications between themselves and this MPS official. So the acting assistant director of the FBI, Kurt Ronau, is with the Counterintelligence Division, says, this case serves as a powerful reminder that the People's Republic of China will stop at nothing to bend people to their will and silence messages they don't want anyone to hear. He goes on in this statement to say that the FBI is dedicated to protecting everyone in the United States against efforts to undermine our democratic freedoms and will hold any state actors and those who help them accountable for breaking our laws. So again, if these two guys are convicted, they could go to jail for 5 years for conspiring to act as agents of the Chinese, and they could also face up to 20 years in prison for obstructing justice. That's actually much swifter action than we've seen in Canada on this portfolio. That in itself I find interesting, because normally I would say it's the other way around these days. The US system seems to be just so bogged down in politics that the wheels of justice grind incredibly slowly down there. And in Canada, it seems, to me anyway, like the authorities are a little quicker to react and deal with these things. Maybe it's my perception is skewed or incorrect, but in this case, you're seeing very swift action on this front. And just before I move along, just in reference to all of this, there's so much craziness out there. People can't really tell what's real anymore, right? We've talked a little bit about that. So I had someone message me today, Trudeau resigned. And I went, what the heck are you talking about? So instantly I'm like, wow, that's like the biggest story of the year. Trudeau resigning. But within, 60 seconds, I realized it wasn't true. And then I did a search online looking for this, other stories to confirm this information. Couldn't find it anywhere. But this person messaging me was convinced that Justin Trudeau had resigned because someone had told him that Trudeau had resigned. And there was this chain reaction happening, and it got all the way over to me. So they were like, Trudeau resigned. No, Trudeau didn't resign. The people who served on the board of directors of the Trudeau Foundation, plus the person, the CEO, resigned. And that's kind of old news. That's really what they were referring to. But people don't understand. They don't get the right information. Then they take this skewed story. It's like the grapevine, right? The next thing you know, I'm getting messages back and people are like, Trudeau resigned. No, it's not true. So if you've been hearing that today, folks, that not true. You just saw Trudeau stand up there. That was from today, him speaking today. He will be the prime minister tomorrow as well because he did not resign. Not true. Miscommunication, false information, call it what you want. It's not true. I'm pretty sure it's because people got confused about the people resigning who run the Trudeau Foundation, which is a charity, which truly is sort of arm's length from Trudeau, but it's got his family name on it. And I think there are some ties there. And I think over time you'll find that when the truth comes out and the paper trail is inspected, you will find definite links between the Trudeau Foundation and the Prime Minister, or at least the Prime Minister's family. So some questions surrounding that certainly still need to be answered. And that could prove to be a little bit of an inconvenience for Justin, as I think he prepares for the next federal election, which honestly, I think we would be into right now. I think they were planning on getting into an election. We would be there right now if some of these issues had not been cropping up. I think he wanted to go to the polls. There was every indication that he was going to call an election last winter so that we would be into a spring or early summer election, because I think he knows that the economy is going to tank or is tanking. I think he knew then that the economy was going to tank, that we were going to get into all these this problem with high inflation, but because he printed so much money. But with now these new problems, the Teflon on Trudeau's Teflon armor is flaking off a little bit. So I think that's why we're not in election mode at the moment. That there was every indication that that was going to happen. And we saw the other parties even begin to prepare with fundraising and organizing and getting candidates lined up. Everybody was expecting it, and it hasn't happened. That tells me that there's big trouble in Little China. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back, and we're going to get through the rest of these stories of the day, top stories of the day, because our guest, our feature interview, Michelle Leduc from the National Citizens Inquiry, will be joining us probably in about 15 minutes, which gives us just about enough time to get through these other stories of the day. So, Russian President Vladimir Putin is hailing his military's performance during massive naval drills that involved the entire Russian Pacific Fleet in a show of force amid tensions with the West over the fighting in Ukraine. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu reported to Putin that the exercise that began last Friday involves 167 warships, including 12 submarines, 89 aircraft, and 25,000 troops. And that is quite a show of force. So as part of the drills, Russia's nuclear-capable long-range strategic bombers flew over, or will fly over, the central part of the Pacific Ocean. And during this exercise, they will imitate strikes against groups of enemy ships. So Shoigu and Putin both praised the Navy's high level of performance and said, and are saying, that similar drills should be held in other areas. Should we be concerned about it? Well, probably. It's more saber rattling, not just the fact that the exercises are taking place, but of course, all the media attention focused on this. It's a signal. It's a little bit of noise, but it's mostly signal saying that we're at a point of potential additional escalation in this ongoing conflict through Ukraine, which is really the United States and NATO at war with Russia. And by extension, possibly, if there is more escalation, China and Iran, the BRICS countries. The Defense Ministry has declared that sectors in the southern part of the Sea of Okhotsk, the Peter the Great Bay of the Sea of Japan, and the Avacha Bay on the southeastern coast of the Kamchatka Peninsula would be closed to sea and air traffic for the duration of practice torpedo and missile launches and artillery exercises. The minister goes on and says that the drills were intended to test the Pacific Fleet's readiness to repel aggression. The ministry is describing the briefing as a show of Russia's voluntary transparency. The Russian military has concentrated the bulk of its forces on the front lines of Ukraine, but it has also continued conducting drills across Russia to train its forces and demonstrate readiness. Again, a lot of that is public relations, as part of the info war, the information war. It's designed to show strength and resilience, political will to do what is necessary to prevail in this conflict. Should we be concerned? Yeah, probably. Should take note. But it's like the powers that be over here just don't seem to get the message. And we all suffer. Have you seen the price of gas lately? Price of groceries? We all suffer. And the people in Ukraine are suffering. And we saw at the beginning of this broadcast that we are all at risk. And especially the people near that nuclear power plant. Can you imagine the calamity, the horror, if they blow that thing up, if it's hit by a shell, and Ukrainian forces keep lobbing shells in there? Pray that they don't hit that thing. Even now, people don't live around the Chernobyl disaster site, the old nuclear plant there. I'd say, what are they thinking? But it's pretty clear they're not. Moving along, the Minnesota Court of Appeals has upheld the conviction and sentencing of Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin on his second-degree murder conviction. That for the 2020 death of George Floyd. This happened earlier today. And he was sentenced to 22 and a half years in prison. And that sentence remains in place tonight. After his court appearance, Chauvin's attorney was asking the appeals court to throw out the ex-officer's convictions for a bunch of different reasons, including the massive pretrial publicity that the case received. He also argued that the legal and procedural errors deprived Chauvin of a fair trial, but there was a 3-judge panel and they sided with the prosecution, who argued Chauvin did get a fair trial and a just sentence. I am not surprised at all. The entire thing was politically charged from the very beginning, and there was no way they were going to overturn that sentence. Could you imagine the riots that would have erupted in the streets if they had ruled that Chauvin could go free? My God, we would be watching the bonfires now, live in real time, on this show. George Floyd died May 25th, 2020. And you may remember the images, the pictures of Chauvin with his knee on George Floyd's neck And then there was the controversies surrounding, the drugs in George Floyd's system, throwing into question some of what the mainstream media was telling us about the case. And then there was the audio of George Floyd saying, "I can't breathe," on the other side of the story. And then, as you know, his death sparked protests around the world. Some of them absolutely turned violent. And we saw BLM take to the streets. We had marches even in my small hometown here in Canada as a result of that incident. And here, those marches, as you may recall, exposed this sort of double standard that was happening out there at the time, where it was like one rule for this and another rule for that when it came to masking and pandemic measures. Because when it came to those protests, all the rules were basically suspended, and they actually endorsed people marching down the street with a police escort in my town. But then the very next weekend, people were getting arrested, for demonstrating in groups of 10 or less. Anyway, you all remember the wackiness that happened during the pandemic, and we're about to talk more about that in just a moment because our guest is arriving. Michelle Leduc will join us in just a moment. And get ready to move over to Rumble because we've been talking about all the YouTube trouble we're having here. The 2 channels banned, and now the other troubles with this last remaining YouTube channel. Well, we wouldn't want to risk that, would we? Well, who cares? We're moving over to Rumble anyway. And so many of you are migrating over there. If you're going to go over there, please subscribe. I put the link in the chat earlier. So just follow that link. Find us over on Rumble because we're about to sign off YouTube in just a moment. I will return right after this with our special guest for the evening.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, I'm back, and joining us live, there she is. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me here.
It's great to have you along. A privilege, absolutely. I say that from time to time, but in this case, it's absolutely true. It's an absolute privilege to have you here.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing, by the way.
Well, we're just trying to do our little bit, just like everybody else.
Yep.
That being said, I do have to do one thing, and that means I have to say goodbye to YouTube. We're signing off. Goodbye, YouTube. Your own fault. Here we go. Adios. We're going over to Rumble, folks, and the other social media platforms. We'll keep all the other ones up. Even Facebook has been okay. They haven't been bothering us at all. So hopefully that's still the case. Hang on a second here while I sign
what an
off.
amazing world that you have to navigate like this,
It is. It's crazy. And why? Because you know what? All we're going to talk about here tonight is what the people want to talk about. It's a people's inquiry, run by citizens. It's a reflection of the community. And yet we have to sign off of this social media platform, which is supposed to be a reflection of